Welcome, everyone, to the Olive Grove podcast.
Great to be here.
Today, we're doing one of our deep dives, this time into the third chapter of Nahum. We really want to dig into the reasons behind the judgment described there.
Yeah, and we're focusing specifically on the analysis presented in a study called MCS Nahum Chapter 3.
Right. So this study gives us the verses and then commentary. Our job today is basically to pull out the key arguments it makes about why Nineveh faced God's judgment.
Exactly. We're sticking just to what this source presents.
Okay, so Nahum 3, big picture. It's about God's, justified vengeance against Nineveh for its actions.
That's the theme, yeah. And the study lays out specific reasons from the text.
Let's jump right in then. Verse 1, Nahum 3.1.
Okay, it starts strong. Woe to the city of blood, steeped in lies, full of prey, with no end to the plunder. Powerful stuff.
City of blood?
Huh.
Wow. So how does the study interpret that opening?
Well, it points out that Nineveh might have looked great, powerful from the outside, but God saw the inside, saw that it was fundamentally rotten, corrupt.
That contrast is striking. Outward appearance versus inner reality.
And the study draws a parallel here, which is interesting.
Oh, yeah. To what?
To modern situations, suggesting maybe richer nations today benefiting from poorer nations' resources.
Okay. Leading to hardship in those poor places.
Exactly. And the study actually poses the question, does it seem like the same type of thing is going on in our world today? It connects it right back.
Makes you think, definitely. It's trying to make it relevant. Okay, so that's the internal state. What about verses 2 and 3? The judgment itself.
Right. The imagery there is just intense.
It really is. Crack of the whip, the rattle of wheels, galloping horses, jolting chariots.
Cavalry charging, swords flashing, spears glittering, and hosts of slain, heaps of bodies.
It paints a picture of absolute chaos.
So the study sees this as what?
Panic?
Complete panic and total defeat. A direct consequence, it argues, of that internal rottenness we just talked about.
Okay, cause and effect.
And here's a key point from the source. It explicitly says the same type of judgment is coming on the nations of today.
Wow. Okay, so it's not just history, according to this study. It's a warning.
That seems to be the interpretation presented, yes? A pattern.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's move to verse 4. The charges get more specific here, don't they?
They do. It talks about Nineveh being an alluring mistress of sorcery.
And that she sells nations with her whoring and families with her sorcery. Strong words again.
Very. The study explains this by saying, look, Nineveh was respected, influential, but God saw it like a harlot because despite maybe seeming to repent earlier in its history,
Like with Jonah.
possibly referring to that period, yeah, but fundamentally their trust wasn't in God. They equated him with their occultic idols.
So not just idolatry, but putting idols on par with God and spreading it.
That's the interpretation, spreading this spiritual infidelity.
And the study links this to the present day, too.
It does. It draws a parallel to Revelation where the church is sometimes depicted as a harlot.
Right.
And it suggests, quite directly, that many professing Christians might eventually side with Satan for, worldly benefits.
That's a stark prediction from the source.
It is. And the study concludes this point by saying God judged Assyria for this behavior, and it implies he'll judge this false church similarly when the time comes.
Okay, so spiritual faithfulness is a major theme here in this study's view. What about verses 5 through 7? God says, I'm against you,
Yes.
declares the Lord Almighty. And the study makes a point about that title, Lord Almighty.
What's the significance there?
It emphasizes God's ownership. His power as creator. He's declaring his stance directly.
And then the part about uncovering skirts, showing shame to the nations.
Yeah, I will uncover your skirts on your face. I will show the nations your private parts and the kingdoms your shame. It's about total exposure, public humiliation.
Making an example of them.
Exactly. The study says the intent is to make Nineveh a cautionary tale for everyone. It even uses this analogy.
Yeah, like a funeral for someone people didn't believe was actually dead, to show how unexpected and complete Assyria's fall would be.
That's vivid. And it mentions allies abandoning them, too.
Yes, the interpretation is that when Nineveh is exposed and starts to fall, its allies will just disappear, won't stand by them.
Right, unreliable alliances. Okay, then the text shifts focus slightly in verses 8 to 10, right? To know Ammon.
Correct. No Ammon, which is Thebes in Egypt. The study points out its strategic location on the Nile, its water defenses.
And it had powerful allies.
Very powerful. Ethiopia, Egypt, Put, Luvim, providing boundless strength, as the text says.
So a really strong city. What's the point of bringing it up?
Well, the study highlights the key fact. Despite all that strength and all those allies, Thebes fell.
Fell to whom?
To the Assyrians themselves, ironically. They were conquered, went into exile.
Ah, I see. So the study is saying the prophet is basically asking Nineveh.
Exactly. It's a rhetorical question posed in the study's view. If mighty Thebes fell to you, Assyria, how can you possibly think you'll stand against God?
It really undermines their arrogance, doesn't it?
That's the intention, according to the analysis, a direct challenge to their sense of security.
Okay, so following that example, verse 11 predicts Nineveh's fate.
Yes, it says Nineveh too will be drunk, your senses completely overcome, just like Thebes.
Drunk, meaning confused, overwhelmed.
That's the sense. Disoriented, helpless. And it adds, you too will seek refuge from the enemy. Again, mirroring Thebes' fate.
A clear warning then. Then verse 12 uses that fig tree analogy.
Right. All your fortifications will be like fig trees with early ripening figs. The moment they are shaken, they fall into the mouth of the eater.
So easily captured.
That's the interpretation. When God decides the time is right, the study suggests their defenses, no matter how strong they seem, will just collapse easily.
It's about God's timing and power, not the strength of the walls.
Precisely. Then verse 13 hits them with another comparison.
Uh-huh.
Look at your troops. They behave like women.
Oof. It's blunt. How does the study handle that?
It acknowledges the language might land differently today, but focuses on the contrast.
The contrast between their reputation.
Their feared reputation as warriors, yes, and this image of them being fearful, ineffective, maybe even abandoning their posts. Open gates, defenses burning.
And the study connects this to modern times as well.
It does. It points to nations often putting their ultimate trust in military strength.
Right.
And it uses Nineveh's fate as a reminder that that's, well, perhaps not the best place to put your trust. It even mentions Revelation 20 armies rising against God.
Only to be defeated. Another peril.
No, exactly. It's a recurring theme in the study's analysis.
So their military fails them. What about preparations? Verse 14 seems to urge them to prepare.
It does. Draw water for the siege. Strengthen your fortifications. Take hold of the mold for bricks. All these actions.
But it's futile.
That's the implication the study draws. Their pride made them wait too long. They delayed preparations until it was basically too late. Procrastination born of arrogance.
And then verse 15, fire and sword.
Yes. There, the fire will burn you up, and the sword will cut you down. It will devour you like grasshoppers. Or locusts.
It's like a plague consuming everything.
And any attempt to bring in last-minute reinforcements, the study suggests, is just overwhelmed by the scale of the judgment. Like trying to fight a locust swarm. It's unstoppable.
Okay, military failure, futile preparations.
Yeah.
What about their economy? Verse 16 touches on that.
Right. You had more merchants than stars in the sky. It acknowledges their economic power. Assyria was a huge trading hub.
But then?
The locust sheds its skin and flies away.
Meaning?
The study interprets this simile as showing how temporary, how fleeting that wealth and economic power actually is. It just disappears.
Like a locust moving on. And there's an end times connection here, too.
Yes, the study links this to Revelation 13, suggesting a future combined system, financial, military, political, religious, that worships the beast.
And implying that systems' power will also be temporary.
That seems to be the connection the source is making, yeah. Transient power.
Okay, we're nearing the end of the chapter. Verses 17 and 18 talk about guards, marshals, shepherds. Leaders, basically.
Leaders, exactly. Guards and marshals are compared to locusts again.
How so this time?
Like locusts that settle on walls when it's cold, but fly away the moment the sun warms things up.
Meaning unreliable, cowardly.
Unreliable, yes. They disappear when things get tough. And the shepherds, the main leaders, are slumbering, asleep.
While the people are scattered.
Scattered all over the mountains with no one to round them up. Complete leadership failure in crisis.
And the study draws a lesson from this.
A very direct one. It warns against putting ultimate hope in any human leaders, political, military, or even religious.
Because they can fail or be unreliable.
Precisely. The study asserts very clearly, our only hope is found in the Good Shepherd that is Jesus Christ.
Strong theological conclusion there. Okay, the final verse, 19. It sounds final.
It is. Your wound cannot be healed. Your injury is fatal. No coming back from this judgment.
And the reaction of others.
Everyone hearing the news about you claps his hands in joy over you.
Joy. Why joy?
Because, the verse adds, for who has not been overwhelmed by your relentless cruelty? Their downfall is seen as relief by those they oppressed.
And the study sees a parallel here, too.
Yes, it interprets this as a picture, a foreshadowing of the saints rejoicing when God finally judges the wicked in the last days. Relief and vindication.
Wow. So that covers the whole chapter through the lens of this particular study. Quite a journey.
It really lays out a comprehensive case for why Nineveh fell, according to its interpretation of Nahum's prophecy.
Reflecting on this, the themes the study highlights, the danger of internal corruption hidden by outward success, the temporary nature of worldly power and wealth, the consequences of turning away from God.
Yeah, and the unreliability of human systems and leaders when things get really tough.
These are themes that, the study clearly feels resonate beyond ancient Nineveh.
Absolutely. It consistently bridges that gap, prompting reflection on our own times.
And speaking of connection, this feels like a good moment to mention our community.
Good idea.
For everyone listening, if you want to discuss these kinds of topics further, connect with others, we'd love for you to join the My Christian Space community online.
It's a great place for fellowship and continuing the conversation. There's a link in the show notes, right?
Yep, link in the show notes. We also want to highlight the work of Enduring Freedom Ministries.
Ah, yes. Important work they're doing.
They're currently focused on a really significant goal: establishing a food pantry right in Jerusalem, Israel.
Which is, a vital service, providing essential support to people in need in such a historic and significant city.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you feel moved to help, if you're looking for a practical way to make a difference, please consider donating to Enduring Freedom Ministries to help make this Jerusalem food pantry a reality.
Every little bit helps, and it supports a tangible need.
For sure. You can find out more and get the donation link again in our show notes below.
Okay, so maybe just a quick recap of the key reasons for judgment on Nineveh as presented in the study we looked at.
Good idea. Let's distill it down.
All right, so the study emphasized, 1, that deep internal corruption, violence, lies, exploitation hidden behind a facade.
Right, the city of blood.
2, their spiritual infidelity, likened to whoring and sorcery for not truly trusting God and mixing his worship with idols, then spreading that.
Placing hope in false gods.
3, their immense pride and misplaced reliance on their own military might and economic wealth, which proved fleeting.
The ripe figs and the locusts flying away.
4, the failure and unreliability of their leadership, the slumbering shepherds and cowardly guards.
Leaders who abandon the people.
And finally, their pervasive, relentless cruelty towards other nations, which ultimately led others to rejoice at their fall.
And throughout, the study kept drawing those lines to contemporary issues and what it interprets as future events, particularly from Revelation.
Exactly. Those parallels were a consistent thread in the source material.
So as we wrap up, maybe a final thought to leave with our listeners, something building on these ideas.
Okay.
Considering how this study portrays the rise and fall of a great power like Nineveh, based on its internal state and relationship with the divine, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What truly constitutes lasting security and righteousness for any nation, or perhaps even for us individually, especially when viewed from a perspective beyond just the material world?
That's a deep question to ponder. What does lasting security really look like?
Something to think about. Anyway, if you appreciated this deep dive, please do subscribe to the Olive Grove podcast here on YouTube. We do these explorations regularly.
And don't forget to check out the My Christian Space website. You can often get early access to these deep dives there, plus connect with the community.
Yep, all the links you need are in the description right below this video. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone.